Be a gentleman.
Don't worry, no smoking, no drinking.
What are you gonna do when the party's over?
Trust me, I'll be fine.
Reports are coming in that the Berlin Wall has fallen.
How you doing, Matt and Adam?
Good, Albert. How are
Good,
you?
Albert, how are you?
I'm good. Believe it or not, I literally just wrote the review of this film like a couple hours ago. So, and
Let me see what you wrote.
oh, you'll see it. Just you can see it. It's on indieworldcinema.com. So that's where you can see
Nice.
it.
Awesome, man.
I'll send you the link.
But I will say this. This was a fantastic movie. These are the type of movies I absolutely love watching. These nostalgic, coming of age type films, but I know a lot of them have like this real positive to it, but I like the fact that this brings more realism to the forefront. And that's what I really liked about this film.
Oh, thank you so
Well,
much.
that means a lot, and we're the same way. These are the movies we love. That's why we wanted to make it so much. It's just, we Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Dazed and Confused, John Hughes movies, like all that sort of stuff. It's like comfort food for us, yeah.
Yeah. So those were your inspirations for writing this screenplay and
Absolutely, yeah. That was the main reason. Like my favorite movie personally, and I don't know about Adam, but Fast Times at Ridgemont High is like, to me, I could watch that over and over again, and I just love it. And even John Hughes, a lot of his stuff is just. I just wish there were more movies like that these days being made, and I know it's a different time, but that was definitely the inspiration.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
those films had like a magic to them. It just
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, I can only think of like two other movies that are just come out recently in the last like maybe decade that had this kind of same motif. There was one called 18 the Party that came out during the pandemic that I saw. It was a bunch of it was also set in the 80s, and it's a bunch of middle schoolers who have to wait outside this club because they won't open until like a certain time. So the whole movie's just them just sitting there and talking. It reminded me of that days Richard Linklater and John Hughes. I think I wrote if they had a
Yeah.
love child, this would be this movie. And
Yeah.
then recently saw one called Casey Makes a Mixtape, and it's set in like the 80s, and it's about a girl who spends a summer with her parents in like 1981, and she's trying to find this one song to complete her mixtape, but then she also comes of age throughout this. I love
I
these
love
type of
stuff like that.
movies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even just I haven't seen either, but it sounds like movies I would want to watch.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
smaller, more contained, but relatable. Something that you can really relate to, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely one influence for me, inspiration I thought this definitely gave was Degrassi, the old school
Yeah.
Degrassi, the Degrassi High and schools when they did Schools Out, where it was more like it wasn't positive like the series. They brought it more darker and realistic. You know,
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
like the real.
people said the same thing when we posted the trailer. A lot of people were saying that too, like, oh, this is giving me the grassy vibes and stuff. Yeah.
And we love Degrassi. We're from Toronto, so I was actually an extra on a couple of episodes, like way back when they filmed. And yeah, we love Degrassi. It's got its roots here in Canada, and to be compared to it, to me, it's a positive and an honor. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And what was and Adam? I'm sorry, I cannot reckon. I can't see the facial hair, man, because you're the nice guy in this movie, and then now I'm seeing the facial
I
hair.
will never clean shave again.
But you
He
were
looks rough.
great. I mean, you were the nice, and I like the all different types of characters in this movie. And that's another thing that makes this film work because, very rarely do you get this natural chemistry between the actors. And, when it comes to these ensemble casts and these different archetypes of characters, you're the nice guy. You're just trying to figure out what do you do in this relationship, or what does this relationship mean? That's your character. And then you have the football player who doubles as the bully, basically, because we learn later what the deal is with him. And then you have um, Dean, who's the cool guy, but
Mhm.
and he's like, but he has respect for Mark because I know Mark does his homework and all, but still, he has this
Yeah.
respect for him. And then of course you have um, Lisa, I think that's her name.
Parker.
Yeah,
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 Mr. Parker, Mrs. Atwood. Yeah, you're right. They're archetypes, and I think we leaned into that a lot because we had so many characters too that we wanted people to just jump into the story and recognize these people, right? And some people say, oh, it's a bit stereotypical or whatever, but those are the '80s movies. There's a lot of that. There was the jocks, the cool kid, the bad boy cool kid like a Dean, the nice guy, the relatable nice guy, boy next door like Mark. So we definitely leaned into that, and I think our cast was amazing. Like, we picked, I felt, perfect people for these roles, and yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm glad you recognize that.
And I also feel like too, like when you have people, these characters that are again like archetypes that people are used to, not only is it easier for them to jump in, but we also, again, when you're doing an 80s movie like this, and like, in modern day now making an 80s movie, you have to lean into those things to also be authentic to what those movies really are, like what we grew up watching, you know what I mean? Even from Fast Times, for example, like I'm my character Mark Gallo has a lot of similarities to Mark Ratner, for example, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly, right? So you have to lean into those things to pay homage, right? Even our poster is a homage to the wildlife. That's like,
I
Matt.
pictured that right away. Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
saw like I
So
was like, oh man, it's the wildlife right here. Like this is
Yeah.
we wanted people to recognize that when they watch this movie, to go like, oh wow, like they got inspiration from this, and I think it's good because, in no way are we saying that we're making a film that's better like than the movies that we watch. We're just trying to show that, we have appreciation for those films, and we want to do something on our own that
It's yeah, sorry, it's a love letter to those movies. That's
exactly,
how
yeah,
that's
I
the word.
feel
Yeah.
it
exactly.
is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally. And what I really like, one of the characters that really got to me is what was the, well, Mrs. Applewood. Like she has this, you see, like she's usually, you see the student have the crush on the teacher, but here you got the opposite, and then you kind of see why. Like her husband's I gotta say, he's a tool. Like
He is,
he's
yeah.
he's more into he's just more into his career than her. And I'm thinking, what is this? What is the matter with this guy? This is crazy. But it's like the career minded like husband type. Like he just
Yeah,
it's like, why did he marry her? And he's just looking, I was like, he's
exactly.
just looking for a housewife. He's too,
He
whatnot.
doesn't, he doesn't realize what he has right in front of him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the scene where you and Dean are sitting on the steps with the other two guys, like Dean was like the cross of like he was like Jeff Spicoli, and like the two guys remind me of the Stoner Buds from Fast
Yeah,
Times, because they just
exactly.
sit there like, and then of course Dean's checking out his friend's mother of all things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that,
It's
that's that
it's
scene
funny you
cracked.
mentioned that. Yeah, because we called the two boys, we called them Trouble Boy One, Trouble Boy Two in the script. We actually we had one of the actors go, can I have a name? Can my character have a name? I'm like, well, you're the Trouble Boys. You guys are like the stoner guys in Fast Times, right? So it's funny that you picked up on that. Yeah. That's exactly how we viewed those characters. And even going back to the steps, right? The scene where Dean's showing Mark the knife. I
Yeah,
actually based that on Fast Times at Ridgemont High when Damone is teaching Mark about picking up girls,
yeah,
right? It was like it doesn't matter if they walk or talk, you're still tapping away. And so it was similar as Dean teaching, the nice guy how to do something, right? Not in this case, it wasn't girls, but it was, how to use a pocket knife and how to defend yourself in a fight, for example, right? So yeah, like it was we a lot of scenes we tried to just, you know, show that love letter and show that love to those films, right? So
yeah,
Yeah, and I think also too that scene in particular, that's one of my favorite scenes that we got to film. It was a long scene, like, to film, because there's so much going on. It doesn't feel like it because you're just, we're sitting, but through the dialogue, a lot is being said without being said. It's for one, Dean. I think deep down he is a good guy, and he does respect Mark in many ways, and he lives up to his word, saying, okay, whatever, I'll help you use this knife, and in a way Mark takes it so seriously. Of something, if you really think about it, is such a simple thing to use a pocket knife, but he takes it so seriously, Mark, and respects Dean so much to just be a part of his circle. He wants to be a part of his circle at the end of the day. He wants to be liked by him. He's a cool guy. He gets all the girls, and he wants to know, like, how to do something as simple as a pocket knife. He loves that.
yeah.
yeah,
And I also liked Cole because Cole, in a way, was like he was like Charles Jefferson in a way, but he's the big bad football player. But then he's
yeah,
got the dark side that he's the bully, like everyone's talking crap about, and so he lets his anger out. And and I totally felt bad for that character, that
yeah.
everything that happened, and that was a pretty shocking character. It was I'm guessing Charles Jefferson was one of the inspirations, but who else
Oh
was
yeah.
that inspiration on that character?
Well, in terms of like filming it, so we actually had a scene that paid homage to Charles Jefferson, the close-up. The first time we see Cole is that same shot is in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So there's that as well. But the inspiration for that character, to me, it was, it was interesting in the sense that, yeah, he was a bully. He had a lot of this anger built up. But to me, I looked at him almost as a scared person, as a scared boy. And I remember there was a scene, not to spoil it too much, but there's a scene where he's dunking another bully's head in the toilet. And Tom Keith, the actor who portrayed Cole, he said, how do you see this? How do you see me playing this, right? And he's like, do you see me playing it angry, like mad anger? I go, what I see is you're scared. You're letting all your fear out on this guy here, right? And so that to me was interesting because I didn't want to just portray him as just a stereotypical bully. I wanted there had to be a reason for that. There had to be a reason for his anger and for why he's picking on Mark. And he was going through a lot internally.
Yeah.
We see a little bit of his family life. We see the power dynamics in his family life as well between himself and his father. We also see the power dynamics between himself and his brother and how much love he has for his brother. He walks him to and from school. He goes to protect him during the day against that other bully. So he was to me, an interesting character, and his growth and his discovery, it was an important part of the film. Yeah.
Yeah, as Mr. Parker, I felt like the way he looked like the teacher from Beavis and Butthead. Like, Mr. Van
Oh,
Treese.
that's a good example. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't even
Like I
think
thought
about
about
that.
someone
That's
with the
good.
long hair. I'm like, this guy's a cross between Mr. Van Driesen and like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. Like he just
Yeah, Puerto Rico,
gave
yeah.
off those
That's good.
No
vibes.
That's
karate,
good.
no karate in this one.
No, but he just like gave off these weird vibes at times. And I
He's
know
Yeah.
my favorite character. He's my favorite character in the movie. He really is.
really.
Yeah, he really is. I just felt so bad for him. Even when I read the script, like just reading Mr. Parker, I'm like, oh, like it's very sad, and it's sad because a lot of people, because again, Miss Parker is like in his late 30s in the film, and it makes you think. I mean, I'm only 26, I'm from 27, and it's like, you know, there's people out there that are going through what he has, like that missed the boat, that missed
Mhm.
the party, quote unquote, right? Like he didn't get to experience what he wanted to do, and
Yeah,
it's sad.
and like in the yeah, like in my I personally resonated with him because I was kind of like I felt like I thought I was gonna miss the boat. Thankfully, senior year that changed, from senior year to college, I finally got to break out of my shell. So I felt like
Yeah,
seeing Mr. Parker, I felt I totally resonated with him because I was in that similar situation back in my school days. I was always
Yeah.
the quiet, reserved one, and then when I broke out of my shell, now it's like holy, and seeing this character, I'm going, oh my God. It's just
Yeah, and you broke out of your shell. I think a lot of people sometimes don't break out of that shell, or they think they'll never break out of it, or they get to their 30s, like Adam said, or their 40s, or any time really. And you're always wondering, like there's a part where he's listening to the radio and they mention the Berlin Wall falling down, and that had double meaning when he comes out and says, "Oh, what's next?" Like he's not even just talking about the world; he's talking about himself. Like, okay, like what's next in my life? Like, what now? What are we doing now? Right? So,
yeah, yeah. It's showing that change with, again, like with what's going on, how the walls being torn down, and everyone seems to be going through their next step. But is Mr. Parker going to go to that next step?
yeah.
So yeah,
And that reminds me, like thinking of that, like what inspired you to use the Berlin Wall as the like inspiration for this story? Because obviously, obviously that was a major point in history.
Absolutely. Like to me, I was always fascinated by the difference in the 80s pop culture and 90s pop culture. To me, and I think everyone views it differently, but to me, I've always viewed the 80s as bright, colorful, fun, exuberant, excess. Whereas the 90s, we get into like the grunge music, we go into the Clinton years and the Bush years, and it just feels a little different. Like it's a bit of a different feel than the 80s. I always wonder, like, it's such a difference. Like, how did we kind of bridge that, right? And doing some research, doing some reading, just out of interest, the Berlin Wall was a bit of a symbol of the end of the 80s, right? It was the end of this Cold War era where, tomorrow a nuclear war, nuclear missile or whatever could hit us and we could all die. Let's live it up right now. that was done, right? And I think the world, maybe more so, maybe in the West, in a sense, is like, okay, what do we do now? Like, where do we go from here? We just had all this excess in the 80s. What are the repercussions of that, right? And I thought it was interesting when you're in high school, especially as a senior, and you kind of touched upon it yourself, Albert, where it's like, I'm going from an adolescent, a teenager to an adult. I'm going from high school to college. What does that mean for my level? What's next? So I thought it was a nice mirror between, socially and politically what was going on, and also what was going on with these kids internally. And in this case, too, the two teachers as well. And I think the collapse of the wall kind of mirrors also the party. Like, this is the last field party before the winter hits, before things get dark, before we're staying inside, and before we're moving on to college and the rest of our lives. This is the last party, and this is the bridge to adulthood. So I thought thematically it all kind of worked well, and yeah, and I think it symbolizes our growth, as human beings, and just growing up. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fantastic. How long did you take to shoot the film, and were there any challenges you faced during production?
I think we shot for, I believe, 22 days. Was it 22 days, right?
22 days, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of challenges. I think the biggest challenge in itself was just putting everything together, right? Like, you think, as an indie filmmaker, where do I start, right? And I think that was the first question we asked ourselves when we made this film. Okay, where do we start here? Thankfully, our DP was, we were already friends with him before we shot this, and he helped in a lot of ways too. Like, we asked him, okay, so as the DP, like, what is your job? What are your responsibilities? And he kind of walked us through too. Okay, we're gonna need locations. We're gonna need this. Matt and I, we did a lot of that stuff ourselves. We literally went to, like, we would drive around. I remember him and I, and we would just literally scope out places. Like, is this a good place to film here or there? Just to cast this film was a challenge too. Thankfully, we had a great turnout for auditions. Like, we had over 100 or 150, which was really surprising because we're an indie film. But I think it's the nature of what the film is. It's the 80s. People are drawn to that, and people are thinking this is a unique indie film where you don't see a lot of indie period pieces. So I think they also maybe took a liking to that. I would hope so. So I think those are the main challenges. And I think even just shooting the late nights too, like the field party days, we were like shooting, like, it was up until 4 a.m. or whatever it was. Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the toughest thing, shooting at night. We actually had to postpone one filming night. It was the only day that rained that happened at the field party, the first night of the field party. So that was a bit of a challenge. It was also, we had a lot of extras too, especially for an independent film. And that was a challenge as well, because, filming too, it takes a lot of time. Like Adam said, we're going to like 3 or 4 a.m. And just to keep everyone motivated and interested in being there was very difficult. But you know what? Like, these are the challenges that they were tough during filming, but looking back, I think it's a lot of fun, and we learned a lot, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I thought it was such a fun time.
And overall, like I said, this is a fantastic movie overall. So I hope everyone gets to see it when it comes out on March 3rd, and enjoy like that decade. I was like, because the 80s is one of the greatest, to me, is one of the greatest decades, hands down, because I grew up in the 80s. So it's like, I knew
I wish.
oh, trust me, you would have loved it.
Yeah.
I would have loved it, man. Thankfully, the 2000s were pretty cool. Like, I was like a 2000s kid, right? So I've even told Matt, like, it's cool that I have like him and my older sister, that like they really showed me a lot of the things that they grew up with, and I got to experience it. It was like a little time capsule. Like, either, the Sega Genesis or the movies, or just, again, going to Blockbuster. Like, thank God I got to catch Blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You were at the tail end of Blockbuster.
Yeah. No VHS, but DVDs. But still, hey, it's Blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
That's it's like in Sopranos where Christopher was like,
we had the mom and pop video stores in the 80s.
Yeah.
So and they wouldn't just carry the Hollywood blockbusters. You got your indie films of the 80s. You got the B movies, and like with the really crazy VHS art. And so, like, I was just like, oh my God, this is so fun.
And you know what? I think people still, even people that didn't grow up in the 80s, like I grew up more in the 90s, but people nowadays, and you see with Stranger Things, for example, people still love the 80s. And I think even if you didn't grow up in the 80s, you still appreciate it because it was such a unique period. It was a unique time that was so different from the 70s, so different from the 90s, and very different from today. So I think it'll always be there. I think people will always be fascinated by the 80s and what was and what people think it was. And yeah, I think that there's always a fascination with that.
Yeah, it's totally awesome. So what's next for you guys after this? Are you gonna are you working on another film together? Are you gonna try something different? What's up?
Yeah, we have one film in I wouldn't say pre-production, but we're working on one film. Um, it's more of a thriller drama. And another idea we do have is maybe jump into the 90s and we'll see. We'll see how this film does and the reception around it. I'd love to explore these characters again. I'd love to explore this type of story again. But if we do it again, it would probably be jumping forward a little bit into the 90s. And because like I said, there's a big shift even from the 90s to the 2000s, right? So
All is
yeah,
fine. All is fine in '99.
maybe, yeah,
Maybe.
maybe, or maybe something similar, but maybe something that'll rhyme too. I don't know, but yeah, like we'll figure something out. But yeah, I'd love to get back in the director's chair and do another one because it was such a fun thing to do. And but we'll see how this one does. We'll see how the reception.
All right, awesome. Well, everyone, you definitely got to check out All Is Fine in '89. It's coming out on video on demand on March 3rd. And I got to tell you, if you guys love the '80s films like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, John Hughes, if you're a Degrassi fan, this is the movie for you, hands down. You definitely need to see it. And Matthew and Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it. And I cannot wait to see what's next from you guys.
Oh, thanks, Albert. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
All
Thanks so
right.
much, Albert. Really appreciate it.
And you guys are awesome and stay awesome.
You too, man. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks, Albert.